In June 2007, a guard was doing his round in an hotel when he noticed a broken window from the outside of one of the rooms. He thought that it was a case of someone broken in the room, but what he found was more shocking. This is the case of Jeremy Brooks and Coty Martinez. It was around 7:30 a.m. when the authorities were called to a hotel in Slidon, Louisiana. A man lay in a bed and blood everywhere, mainly around his head. But when the ambulance arrived, they noticed that the victim was still alive, but hanging by a string. When examining the crime scene, they tried to identify the victim. The police didn't find any document or wallet, concluding that the victim suffered a violent robbery. But this was not the only victim. After this incident, more victims showed up because this was a serial killer, but not just in Louisiana, but in the entire country. Cut off Louisiana, a small city where everything was calm and perfect. But for Coty Martinez of 18 years, her life was not ideal. Coty's parents divorced when she was 2 years, but her father got married right after and focused completely on his new wife. With that, Coty and her sister started to live only with her mother, Brenda, but because of her work that consisted in working in a commercial ship, she didn't have time to her daughters. The neglect and abandonment effects were showed in Coty's adolescence when promise-like comportments and traps started. Brenda, knowing what Coty was doing, she tried to interview and help her daughter, but the rebel adolescents rebelled even more. Coty started to get out at night without the consenting of her mother, and when she was 16, she dropped school. And the next years, Coty got off the house and walked aimlessly on the streets until she was 19. She met someone that helped her put her life back on the track. That someone was Sean Martinez, of just 34 years. He was thoughtful and sensitive, everything that Coty didn't have in her life. She was able to clean herself and found comfort in him, such comfort that their age difference didn't matter. They decided to get married after a couple of months of dating, but just as Coty said, "I do," the marriage fell apart. She discovered that he had cheated on her the day before the marriage. A fantasy got destroyed, and her life became a nightmare. It was when Coty was 20 years she decided to get divorced and started to work in some weird jobs. After her divorce was finalized, her cousin got a blind date with someone that, according to Coty, was a man that could make all of her fantasies into reality. Boxer of 27 years, Jeremy Brooks. Jeremy also came from a small town, but like Coty, he had some problems in his adolescence, and when he was 16, he got out of school, and his parents let him out on his own. That's when Jeremy decided to dedicate to his passion. On his 20s, all the work that he had in the gym was noticeable. Eventually, he decided to use his muscular body to make money in professional boxing. When Jeremy won his first fight with a knockout on the first round, it was perceptible that if he continued like that, in the future he would have an invaluable career. With the victories accumulating, his reputation was the best and most feared boxer in Louisiana started to grow. Coty thought this reputation was irresistible when she met Jeremy, and Jeremy also didn't get behind. He actually felt attracted to Coty's energetic personality. They had just met, but for some reason, they couldn't take their hands away from each other. During this time, they ended up discovering that they had something in common, an obsession of changing their small city lives, something that the two hoped to achieve with the growth of Jeremy's career. Because of the money that Jeremy was doing, Coty started to see herself dependent on Jeremy's money. Unfortunately, Jeremy's career started to decay before she even had a chance to be at the top. The ring wasn't the only thing that he was giving attention. Heavy parties began to be part of his routine. It was not after that he started to develop problems with methamphetamine. The addiction started to be seen in his performance in the ring, and his career went down water. Unlike his relationship with Coty, instead of Coty helping Jeremy with his addiction, she had her old habits waking up. This made their life become a hell because they were always high, what made it impossible for them to maintain a job. That's when they realized that they didn't have anything in Louisiana besides the drugs, and opted to follow their dream of having a life outside the small city. Coty and Jeremy went in Coty's car. They went aimlessly, and who could think that this trip full of drugs and alcohol could end up like it did? The police of Slidon 2000, Louisiana were still working on the case of that morning, an unidentified man that was violently beaten and was hanging by a string in a hotel room. But then, the investigator ended up finding the name of the person that rented the room, and it didn't belong to the victim. The name was from a woman, and she was called Coty Martinez. Since Coty wasn't on the crime scene, the investigators started to think of the scenarios of what could have happened. The first one would be that Coty was the responsible for the violent aggression and then ran. The other possibility was that Coty would be a second victim and was kidnapped by the aggressor. But the investigators found a clue that corroborated with one of the possibilities. When Coty rented the room, she had to leave a photocopy of her driver's license, where it's shown her height and weight. According to her license, she only had 5'3" and 100 pounds. The police noticed that with that physiognomy of Coty, it was impossible that she would do such aggression. That's when the investigator saw themselves with two questions. Who did this aggression and where was Coty? So the police called Brenda, Coty's mother, to know where was her daughter, but Brenda said that she didn't heard from her daughter since she went away with her boyfriend Jeremy. And when asked more information about Jeremy, Brenda revealed that he was a boxer, and that caught the attention of the police. That's when they received a call from the hospital, warning that the victim had survived and was awake. It was a miracle, because even though he had his whole face bruised and his shin broken, he could talk. The victim was Joe Welch, of only 15 years. He explained that everything started on the afternoon before. He had just bought a liquor and was going home. That's when he passed by the hotel. A white man approached him and asked him if he wanted to party. Joe normally didn't deny alcohol, but was hesitant of accepting this proposal from a stranger. But everything changed when the stranger gave him the chance of meet a beautiful woman, and Joe accepted. When they arrived, a woman was laid down on the bed, waiting for them, and it looks like Joe was going to receive what he was promised. But Joe started to notice that something was off, and decided to walk away. He got up to went away, and was hit by a beer bottle in the head. Quickly, Joe was on the ground, and the man that invited him to the room was already on top of him, beating him non-stop. Joe was hit by bottles, lamps, and other objects that were on the room. Before passing out, he felt someone touch his pockets and gave a good look on his aggressors. The police showed a photo from the license of Coty and Jeremy, and Joe identified the two of them immediately. But a question was waiting for a response. Was Coty a part and knew it about the attack, or was she coerced to comply to be his accomplice? For that, police had to be fast in finding the couple, so they sent search warrants. But the two had already gotten away. Until on August 14, the investigators received a call from a police department of Drake, North Dakota. According to the sheriff, a woman called Rosie Gable offered information on the case. Everything started on the morning of that same day. Rosie heard someone knocking on her door. When she opened the door, a young woman was there, telling that she was starving. Feeling sorry, Rosie invited her to come in and gave her conditions to clean herself and eat. The woman said that her name was Kelly Smith and was traveling with a boyfriend, but the two of them ended up discussing, and she ended up alone and hungry. That's when Rosie made a call to the sheriff, and Kelly was taken to a shelter. But after the girl had left with the parole car, Rosie heard someone knocking on the door again. This time, it was a young man that was looking for his girlfriend. Rosie warned that his girlfriend has taken to a shelter, and he only thanked and went away. But something didn't seem right, so Rosie called her grandson to see if they find something about the two mysterious visitants. They ended up finding a site that listed "Look It Up fugitives," and soon enough, they found two familiar faces. Rosie quickly understood that the woman and her boyfriend were suspects of attempted murder in Louisiana. The police were quickly warned, and while a patrol car looked out for Jeremy, another went to the shelter where Coty was left. When they arrived, Coty wasn't already at the shelter, but she didn't go far away. She was found in a local bar. While Coty was under custody, Jeremy was still missing. The investigators tried to get information of Coty, like what could have led them to attack Joe and where was Jeremy. Coty decided to stay silent to protect her big love until the investigators told her about the accusations that she would receive. Coty then decided to cooperate, but just if she received a lighter sentence. When she got her deal, she started to tell her version of the events. When they started the trip, they had a plan of going to all the cities and use Jeremy's drug stock. but they still hadn't reached the first city when the stock was finished. That's when Jeremy had the idea of rob someone to buy more trucks. They rented a room on a hotel and Jeremy went to find his victim. Jeremy saw Joe. He gave the idea to take him to the room with the promises of alcohol and sex. Coty admitted that agreed with the plan in the beginning, but quickly she had doubts when Jeremy was on top of an unconscious Joe. With this attack, Coty started to get terrified of the presence of Jeremy, but was afraid of irritating him. The fear only intensified when Jeremy threatened her after they got out of the hotel. Jeremy said that at any time he could explode and kill someone, including her. Seeing herself without any option, Coty kept going with Jeremy, so they wasted the Joe's $20 in drugs, and the couple traveled as fugitives. They kept going to the north until they ran out of gas in Tennessee, where they decided to leave the car and use trains to go to Louisville, Kentucky. Starved, they started to look for food. That's when they found a soup house and made friendship with a voluntary, Robert Elliott, of 50 years. Coty remembers that Robert gave them special attention and that he helped Jeremy get a temporary job and invited them to live in his apartment while they would resolve their life. But this invitation ended up 1 week after when Robert found Jeremy using drugs on his living room. But Jeremy didn't like to be thrown away, so in seconds he attacked Robert, but this time Jeremy didn't contain himself just with the punches. He also suffocated him. In that night, Robert didn't have the same luck as Joe because he ended up dying. Jeremy wrapped Robert in a sheet and put him inside the wardrobe. They decided to stay in the apartment, but they ended up giving up since the smell coming from the wardrobe got worse. But since they wasted all Robert's money and drugs, they had to keep going without a car and money. They decided to go after a new target that had both. They followed the train trails and went to Push River Road area in Louisville, known as a rich neighborhood. After they arrived, they saw Patrick O'Dea of 69 passing by. Coty said that Jeremy decided to use her as a bait. She approached Patrick with the excuse that her boyfriend had lost his wallet in the forest and needed help to find her. Patrick was described as being a man that liked to help, so he followed Coty inside the forest until they found Jeremy. Jeremy gave a punch in Patrick's face and then dragged the unconscious man away from Coty's vision. When Jeremy came back, Coty asked him what had he done, and he only answered, "I suffocated him." With Patrick dead, they took his wallet, key cards, and the car. The investigators were shocked with Coty's statements, since they didn't know about the couple's involvement in the death of Robert Elliott and Patrick O'Dea. But the investigators still had questions if Coty was really just an observant like she was telling, or if she was more involved on the crimes. But Coty's statements were novel. Coty said she and Jeremy drove to Minneapolis, and when they ran out of gasoline, they decided to use the trains again and got out in Wright County. They preferred to go again with the plan of go find more money and a new car. After the walk, they saw a house and followed with the plan of using Coty as bait. Coty knocked on the door and asked for help to Ruth Overson, but she didn't have time to respond since Jeremy entered and attacked her. Already inside of the house, Coty told that Jeremy was already doing the same thing that he did to the others. With Ruth out of the way, they took her cards, clothes, money, and their car. They followed to North Dakota, and just like before, Coty insisted in telling that she was disgusted by Jeremy's actions, but she couldn't do much because she was afraid for her life. They used the car until it ran out of gas, and when they saw the house of Ruthie Cable, they decided to follow with the same plan that they made with Ruth. But this time, when Coty made the signal to Jeremy, he never showed up. It was Jeremy's error that gave Rosie the opportunity to call the police, that led to the separation of the couple and then Coty's detention. After Coty's testimonies, the police reinforced the search for Jeremy, but finding him was becoming more difficult, so the police asked for Coty's help. Coty thought about an escape plan that Jeremy had told her if someday the police got involved. The plan was to start a fire as a distraction and got out without suspicions. Like Coty said, a day after, a fire began in a farm near there, and the police went and surrounded the area. Quickly, the helicopter saw Jeremy in the middle of the planting. The police quickly got to Jeremy and he surrendered without giving a fight because he was cold and hungry, so he was happy with the possibility of having a warm blanket. When Jeremy sat down with the investigators, he kept asking, why all that alarm? According to him, he suffered some mental problems and didn't remember anything about his and Coty's supposedly crimes. While Jeremy made himself as dumb, the investigators found proofs that connected him and Coty to the crimes. When Jeremy started to work in a company that Robert had presented to him, Jeremy had to put his thumbprint on a check that matched the print found inside Robert's car. Jeremy and Coty were also caught in surveillance cameras using the victims' cards. These proofs, together with the Coty statements, were enough to the promoters of Kentucky, Minnesota, Louisiana, and North Dakota accused Jeremy of 3 murder accusations and attempted murder. It was giving the chance to Coty tell everything and nothing be used against her, but Jeremy didn't have that luck. It was presenting an option to Coty: stay by her love side or send him to the death corridor. She sent the man that she loves a ticket to death. In August 2008, Jeremy was supposed to be taken to Kentucky to be accused of the deaths of Patrick O'Dea and Robert Elliott. If condemned, Jeremy would suffer extreme consequence, like death penalty. The trial was supposed to start with Coty's statements, but that never happened because Jeremy, knowing of the possibility of death penalty, he asked his lawyers to contact the Kentucky promoters and try to get a deal to the murders of Patrick, Robert, and also Ruth Overson in Minnesota, and also for the attempted murder of Joe Wells in Louisiana. Jeremy was sentenced to pass his whole life inside prison without the possibility of conditional, but the promoters still had Coty Martinez in hand. They kept their promise that if Coty cooperates, she would receive a lighter sentence. In November 5, 2008, Coty gave herself as guilty of criminal help and homicide accomplice in second degree. To some, Coty received a light sentence, to someone who admitted to being involved in 4 horrible crimes. Some believe that Coty wasn't that innocent as she wants to seem, but he has an accomplice that would do everything for the love of her life. Coty was going to stay 30 years locked up and would be capable of getting out when she was already in her 60s. Even though justice was done, the workers of this case still can't believe how 2 young lovers could end up committing such crimes. Coty's cooperation turned the investigations much more easier, and it's believed that if Jeremy had escaped, he would make more victims. This is all we know about the case of the 2000 Bonnie and Clyde. The victims' families are able to sleep in peace, knowing that the aggressors are behind bars. What is your opinion about Coty, and if she is so innocent as she wants to demonstrate, and if Jeremy deserved that deal or being sentenced to death penalty? Well, that's it. Leave a like and comment other crimes that you'd like to see here. Bye!